Did you guys see what this morning Kevin Hart posted on his Instagram? A disclaimer that no, it wasn't me. I was hacked. Meme coin, some adverts about this coin and that coin and whatsoever. So that was quite. And then I did some checks into the number of hacks into accounts or the number of breaches this year, and there's quite a few. So it leads me to the question: are we more safe today? Because we are in an era of the highest
cyber breaches.
Cyber breaches, innovation, technology. So is technology innovation making us safer or not? Like, what's going on in the world today? That's a huge question. Anyway.
Short answer, no.
Yeah.
No, short answer, no, right?
Anna, Richard, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, today is the big subject.
Today is the big subject. When we launched the Impact Nexus, we were always thinking about people driving innovation, technology, change in the organization. But then we also have people who are actually ensuring that the organization stays safe, steady, secure, and that's also impact in a different way. So it's a huge subject around not just making impact, but also being steady in the face of impact to the organization. So it's really cool to have you guys on board. I don't know how we're going to take it quickly. Ladies first. Dana, how are you?
Great.
Yeah?
Yes, thank you.
How are you doing? Richard?
Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. So Richard just landed in the early hours of this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's we don't take
Busy
this
people?
lightly. Busy people.
It's always moving.
Yeah. So before we even get into the conversation, is the cyber world always hectic? How do you measure it? I'm guessing you've always been in this industry. You've tested different industries. On a scale of 1 to super busy, how hectic is it to be a cybersecurity professional?
Yeah.
Super, super busy. 11 if your scale is from
1 to 10. Yeah.
it's very dynamic. We're seeing so many threats, more and more sophisticated, of course, driven by technological advancements, AI being obviously the big topic of the hour. The companies increasing basically their footprint, with going digital more and more. Analog systems become networked systems. It's a big impact to businesses, and definitely we are very busy as people that work in the cybersecurity function. And we always need to learn latest developments. We always get threat intelligence in every day. We're always on the go.
Do you have a philosophy that defines you in your industry? So one thing we're going to talk about is the fact that you guys are both professionals in the cybersecurity space, where you actually do look at different aspects of cybersecurity, different industries. So Richard, what is your philosophy when it comes to, if you have one, when it comes to security?
I think cybersecurity has changed. I mean, it's evolving. The way we looked at cyber 10, 15 years ago, it's not the same way. Cybersecurity used to be like a back office operations, stopping things, firewalls and passwords, password management, access. But today, cyber has changed. It's a strategic enabler. How your footprint in the digital space is as important as your back office operation. So today, what we have is cybersecurity being an enabler of innovation. The board, the shareholders, your customers, they want to know if there's trust with that organization. And cybersecurity is one of the pillars that enables that. So my philosophy is always ensure that whatever we're doing, it ties into the continuity of the business, the profitability of the business, the trust, while you manage all the evolving risks that cyber poses today.
So what you're saying is that it's not like it was, let's say, 10 years ago when you needed to prove that you need a cybersecurity, but these days, actually, the leadership of the company, they are interested to have it in place.
Yes.
They are interested to promote it to the clients and to the partners, and that is the kind of pride that they have in the organization.
Exactly, and regulators, government. In fact, Gartner, one of the leading publishers of stats, says that by 2027, 2026, 70% of boards will have at least one person with cyber expertise. That's how important cybersecurity has become in any type of business, whether it's large corporates or small, medium enterprises.
Dana, do you find it the same in the industry where you are leading the cybersecurity?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing that cybersecurity becomes a strategic imperative. Yeah, and we're seeing the board asks questions around cybersecurity. They're getting cyber risk presented to them. They are reading about ransomware attacks or data breaches. They're reading about multiple law action class suits, all sorts of different incidents, and so they're asking those questions. And if no one in the business is there to be able to answer them in the way that they understand it on a strategic business level and not very technical, which is a language they might not understand, it's a financial impact, it's reputational impact, it's your operating licenses at stake. Yeah, we've seen businesses go bankrupt from ransomware attacks and not being able to deal with the impact, recover the data, and so it's definitely a board level discussion now.
So is it primarily positioned as a mitigation to threats in an organization? Because a lot of times you never know the value of all these investments till actually an event happens or an event is avoided. And all these actions that are put in place to avoid breaches are not really seen or acknowledged by the board. Like, what is the tangible value that is shown to the board, to the organization, apart from the fact that, yes, we've put A, B, C, D in place to avoid a breach?
It could be many things, right? So organizations want to move fast, right? So think of it like a different analogies to use here. You can think of it like a car. Why do people buy supercars or luxury fast cars? And why do they hit the highway on 210 kilometers per hour?
The thrill, prestige, tons of reasons.
Adrenaline.
But they know that when they hit the brakes will save them from whatever speed they're in. That's the way the board and the businesses or business leaders are looking at it. How fast can we go and how much of this brake works, right? How can we expand our businesses and how much of regulatory compliances from a cyber point of view can you provide to me? So it's more of how do we ensure that cybersecurity is enabling us to move faster, to expand our horizons and to do more things in the cyber world with that assurance. So if you ask me, what is the tangible benefit? It's how fast the business is moving, regardless of the risks that we face. And what the CISO or what the cybersecurity professionals in the organization does is provide that assurance with measurable targets that says, we will not be able to eliminate every single risk, but from the landscape we operate in, these are what we know right now, and this is how we are managing that. So the trade-offs and those conversations happen. That's why cyber has moved from, it's just not technology and implement technology, it's how do you communicate those strategic actions that you've taken into how the business is moving forward, right? It could be banking, it could be finance, it could be government agencies, but it's the same logic, it's the same principle around how that works.
Yeah, Dana, and it's not only the technology, right? It's all the processes, all the governance that we put in place to assure the cybersecurity and the business continuity there.
Yeah, exactly. It comes down to operational risk and resilience, really, and the fact that every business has business processes, and these are complex in terms of the different assets that you need to have in order to perform a process. It's people, it's certainly technology, it's physical spaces, it's suppliers, etc., and you need to understand what these assets, how they are part of this process and how critical this process is if it gets disrupted or compromised. And it all comes down to what's the impact of anything happening, either a disruption or a data breach, with regards to your enterprise risk management and your impact to the business, be it financial, be it reputational, be it health and safety. When we talk about industrial control systems, for example, companies that are either in energy or water or transportation, these systems can have detrimental impact to people's health and safety, to the environment, and to national security. So understanding all of these assets and having visibility on them to start with, have businesses actually understood all the critical assets that need protection in a risk-based approach, right? And how does this all flow together, all the processes, assets, and how can we govern all of this, right? This is kind of the world we are operating in. It's a very complex puzzle, basically. And we are the pieces that secure the operations to continue and to protect shareholder value.
So you're talking about the fact that there is a playbook when it comes to even the world of cybersecurity. So different organizations have different business models, different stakeholders. So the approach is not the same across each organization, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Correct.
There's a lot of organization context.
Okay.
There's a lot of risk tolerance. Some organizations have higher risk tolerance.
Like financial services, I would assume that is a very low appetite, for risk.
Extremely low, right? You see a bit more risk averseness as opposed to more growth, fast-moving innovation, which has always been the stable of financial institutions, and also regulatory insights, right? So your regulator determines how fast you move, right? So an example, I work in a multinational, so we're in different countries. There are certain times where a regulator says that's okay, another regulator says that's not okay. But as an organization, how do you move? We can't split a process, or we can't split a product offering. So those types of things also play into how do we, give the assurance to probably a regulator that needs more assurance that this is not as risky as you think, just because this other bank is doing this or this other bank is doing that. We have a different way of doing it. And then you can sell that. So there's a lot of selling and negotiation with internal and external stakeholders, because if you don't get it right, the business tends to lose its strategy of how it wants to operate, because everything has to go in a secure manner. And that's where we come in and play.
And then I assume that the priority will be given to the highest rules and the regulations
the strictest, amongst all of them. In many of the cases, that happens. Yeah, many of the cases. And I think the way the regulators think about it is, think of it like I'm giving you a license to operate in this market. I'm not giving you a license to operate in A, B, C, D, right? Of course, I'm only concerned about my own fears and concerns in this market. And they think of it like the attackers only have to get it right once. You have to get it right all the time. So like Dana said, the organizational context, where are my critical assets? If I use another analogy, house, I can block that window there, but what about the door outside? Is that also blocked? What about where the rat passes, the rat hole? So everything has to be, the attacker only has to get it right once, either one of this, one of that, or one of that, and it gets it right, and you fall into that ransomware or breach trap. So that's where the regulators come from with most of the strictness of it. While some are liberal, some are a bit more, accepting of risk. But those types of juggling in the mindset of not just you, but in the business leaders and those who are thinking about how do we move forward is something that's always been thought of.
Yeah, and then you're a huge proponent, and you talked about that, OT, operations, and versus just focus on information technology. You are a massive proponent of saying you have to look at every single aspect, a source of a breach, not the windows, the doors, every single. Are you seeing across industries more and more organizations understanding that, listen, it's not just about IT, but we also have to pay attention to the whole? Is there a shift when you go to conferences and when you speak to people? Is that understanding being widely held?
So yes, definitely. We're seeing a shift towards more securing operational technology as well. That has several reasons. One of them is that there are more cyber attacks onto operational technology to actually cause disruption to those systems. Again, they have a very high impact into health and safety, electrical grids. If the lights go out, water chemical levels rising, they can have a high impact onto national security and the environment, etc. So that understanding is there. Attackers find the assets with the biggest impact, right? They're using this as their tools. And that has grown over the past. As a result, there is more regulatory compliance requirements on the OT side, and the whole focus on operational resilience, therefore, right? So we are definitely seeing a higher focus. Are we there yet? No, not at all. Especially attackers are looking for soft targets as well. They're looking to compromise smaller organizations that are maybe not that heavily regulated and not that mature, but that have a direct connection into supplying a larger organization, right? So that's another area.
That's interesting, actually.
Yeah, where we are way
that.
behind. Yeah. Those small organizations that might not even know where to start, might not have big cybersecurity budgets, right? And really need that guidance as well from the industry, from the institutes that hand out guidance, from the regulators, of course.
And as a consultant, do you see an appetite there to increase the scope?
Huge, absolutely, yeah.
It's like a business opportunity, cybersecurity for SMEs.
Yes, it is, absolutely.
It is.
There's a lot of demand, and also looking at those, making those connections that I mentioned earlier in terms of processes, that wider picture of enterprise risk management. Especially when it comes to operational technology, we're also looking at physical security, because it has a physical impact, and these systems can physically be manipulated, right? So here we're supporting safety. We're working closely with safety. We also need to work closely with physical security. We need to have a business continuity management program in place. The IT network, everything needs to work together. And there's a lot of growth and opportunity here for consultancy, of course, and for these companies to mature and find the best value in what they do, because of course, limited resources, be it people, be it budget, money is always a question. So here, how we can demonstrate that we are delivering value is really to make this measurable, right? And how do we make this measurable is we can quantify this risk. We say, okay, an annual loss exposure of, for example, $10 million. And this bundle of security controls that I have budgeted for, be that people, be that managed services, technologies, etc., cyber insurance perhaps, this costs $1 million. Then I have just demonstrated how I can mitigate this risk, this gap, and this is how I can, as a CISO, for example, or a risk manager, demonstrate tangible value of those controls that cost money to the business. And this is the best way of doing that. You always have risk and you have compliance.
Is that a widely accepted way of doing that, showing the value proposition? Because I understand it. You use a risk mitigation approach to show value. So if we don't have this in place, hey, your exposure is this. But that sounds viable in a mature organization that understands risk management and risk exposure and the need to mitigate against that. So I'm hearing in that case that the maturity of an organization supports the implementation of cybersecurity practices and also supports the validation of all the effort that is put into that. So what happens for less mature organizations?
Spreadsheets, Excel.
So
risk management doesn't have to be as elaborate. As obviously, as you get bigger as an organization, you have the enterprise risk management frameworks, and all types of risks are managed in the same way, such as showing value or loss exposures. But I remember starting out earlier when I was in a consulting firm. There was a very small, I won't call it mom and pop shop, but it was a startup organization, and they wanted to do risk management. And what we did is the same principles apply, right? What could happen, and what is the likelihood of that happening, and what is the impact of that happening? So today, there are multiple terms that are used to describe what I just said by different vendors and different frameworks. Some call it threat scenario assessments and so on. But at the end of the day, it's an assessment to say, okay, I have a bakery. I'm online, I sell stuff online. What are the likelihoods of different threat scenarios that will impact my business from a cyber lens? Okay, somebody could take down my website, or my accounting software might be unavailable, or password may be leaked. All these things are listed down in a spreadsheet, and you say, okay, what's the likelihood of this happening? Okay, maybe it's really high. It could happen once in maybe 2 weeks or once in 12 months.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any controls in place to put, like mitigating controls or compensating controls? And if you follow that same principle and you look at where many organizations are today with risk management, it's the same thing. What do we have? What are the risks that could impact our business? What controls do we have in place? And based on that, what is the residual risk and what is the priority of this, right? Whether it's heat maps or whether it's in financial statements, any organization can do it. It's just about having that principle mindset of how do we manage risks. And this is not just cyber. This is operational resilience.
Exactly.
This is technology risk. This is all across.
It sounds to me like so much of what you do depends on how solid an organization is, and also it depends on where you sit in the organization. I like the fact that CISOs are chiefs, so you probably see.
There's a whole different podcast about the chief title.
That, right? Because you're talking about business continuity. You are talking about policies, structure. How many companies and what do you do in a state whereby the organization doesn't have those systems in place, and you're not at the position where you can influence that? That in itself is a threat to the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. We, as I said earlier, it is a very complex puzzle, and all these different processes and governance frameworks have to work together. If the company has a low maturity, has, for example, not a clearly defined procurement process or project management, PMO, governance process, means we as cybersecurity and any other risk function is not involved from the start. So we cannot design our controls from the outset, meaning we have to maybe fix things later, we have to bolt on later, but we have less influence. So we couldn't really mitigate risk to the business from the beginning. And this is a problem. This is a big business risk, actually. So what can you do if you are in a lower maturity organization? It's a lot of awareness and education from your side, right? Actually sitting with the business and helping also to design these processes to a certain extent. Of course, your scope is limited to the security part, right? Going forward in terms of the other question about the CISO and where it should sit or where it is actually sitting.
I thought every CISO reports to the chief.
You would think so, because the C means chief, right? And you would think that this means it's on the C-suite level.
Exactly.
For whatever reason, with the CISO, it is different. It is quite often we're seeing this. It totally depends on the business, nature of business, industry, maturity, complexity. But quite often we're seeing that the CISO reports into a member of the C-suite. And that is not necessarily an issue. It's an issue when it's a conflict of interest. For example, when the CISO reports into the CIO, Chief Information Officer, or VP of IT or technology, whatever the job title might be, because inherently it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity or security as a whole is a risk function, whereby the technology functions are delivery functions. They're enabling, supporting the business.
Is that a widely held view? Is that an opinion? Is that a fact?
This is a significant shift now in the industry, actually.
Sounds like we have a debate coming up here.
No. What's your question? Is it accepted that it's a conflict of interest?
Where does it sit? Okay. Under the CIO, or is it a primary risk?
I think many people are moving away from the conversation around where should the CISO sit, as opposed to what is good for that business, or what works. Like you said, different organizations will have different structures. Some may be reporting into a VP of IT, and they could be even more influential in decision making than someone who's reporting to a CFO or a CRO. And you could see it flip in other organizations. So just like Dana said, I think more importantly is whoever you're reporting to, does he or she have the best interest of safety, security, resilience at heart? Because they could work simultaneously. I could have a technology head or IT head who also has to deliver 99.999%, but he also understands that I need to deliver secure products. I need to deliver secure systems. And there could be trade-offs here and there. But at the end of the day, does that individual have the best interest of security at heart? And is that part of his own KPI as well? Because sometimes technology head just has a KPI to deliver, right? Nobody looks at him when there's a breach or when there's something that has gone wrong with a system and it has been, there's an incident. But if he does have that as part of his own KPI as well, he supports your own cybersecurity objectives. So it really depends on how the organization structures that reporting, but also how the working relationship between these two roles are within that organization.
I would fully agree with this. However, we are seeing a shift in even from a board and regulatory compliance perspective, that because this is subjective, right? It's then driven by that individual. They want to have a clear split in terms of the conflict of interest. So we're seeing more demand now to move the cybersecurity function out of the technology function into a more strategic, by default, more strategic position in the business, which could be under the CEO, the COO, the CRO, if that exists, Chief Risk Officer, right? Because it is that strategic imperative now, and it is a risk function. But it can work either way. It depends on the individuals as well, very much that are in the seat and make those decisions, and the governance.
Good. Yeah, no, I wanted to return back to the maturity of the organization and also the size of the organization.
Yeah.
From my understanding now, with all the services that's available in the market or in the, let's say, in the technology world, even the small organizations can use some kind of services, subscription-based like SaaS services to be more secure, right? Compared to the kind of the old world when you need to have on-premise infrastructure, the heavy infrastructure and the on-premise solutions to be more secure in the technology world.
Yeah. So I think that shift has been happening for the last maybe 5-7 years, where organizations can just set up shop, and there are a lot of SaaS services. The cloud has made it, faster to move and innovate. I think the cybersecurity risk still persists, right? So in the cloud world, there's this responsibility model. Who's responsible for the data that sits on, for instance, a SaaS platform? Yeah. Is that you, the customer, or is that the SaaS vendor? Is that the cloud provider? And it's still an ongoing debate of how do you ensure as a business you're addressing all the risks, whether it's through the way you draft the contracts or the responsibility models. What I'll just say to this, though, is more cloud service providers are becoming a bit more cloud aware or self-aware around the risks, not like they were before. And with some of the reporting that we have and some of the assessments that we have, like the SOC 2 type 2 reports, whereby you get an independent assessor to say, okay, this cloud service provider can provide me this service with a reasonable level of assurance. Because some of those reports, I read them and I'm like, I don't really know what's going on in your organization, but I'll take PwC or one of the big four's word for it. Yeah. But yes, it enables businesses to say, I may not have the budget or the startup infrastructure, but I can rely on certain SaaS services as long as I have internet, I have a laptop, I have a team of 20 people. We don't even need to have 1 or 2 IT people who manage those types of resources. But yeah, that's how it works in today's world. Very different from, the pre-cloud world of 15 years ago. Yeah.
Let's dig into the organization and let's delve into the roles employees have to play and how difficult is it to galvanize a workforce to practice safe measures. Is there
It's like in a Harry Potter movie, on the set, like you are the threat. Sitting in the room.
Absolutely. Security is a people risk, is a people issue ultimately. We're getting attacked or compromised by humans, and there's a lot of human response in terms of how we can mitigate this risk. So I read somewhere that about 70 to 80% of cyber attacks actually start with exactly that layer where an employee got tricked through social engineering, and that could have many different looks and ways in. But there are lots of ways to obviously raise awareness in the business. Of course, you have your classic awareness training. That
But at
probably
some
everyone
point that
knows.
falls on deaf ears. At some point.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
Exactly.
So what I felt very powerful in previous organizations was, for example, when we have the safety value, right? That becomes part of is part of your onboarding, as part of your everyday life at work, safety moments. Yeah, we always had these 2-minute little conversations or stories at the beginning of every formal meeting, etc. Why can't we have the same for security? Why can't we make this really part of everyone's
The routine.
of the routine at work, just like we protect safety in those organizations where that is very relevant, and also give rewards for people that have done something maybe in addition, something special for the organization in terms of security, and make it part of your performance, your HR performance requirements. Put 5% towards adhering to certain security standards, completing your training on time, have a great phishing simulation rating, and all these things. So you can formalize it through HR, giving them some incentives, but also make it very realistic for them, and telling them about incidents that are actually happening.
Yeah, make it
Right?
practical.
Make it practical,
Yeah.
and focused on their private life as well, because it's protecting their own data, it's protecting their families, their jobs, right? Their children that use social media extensively.
Yeah.
It's everyone's private life at the same time.
Yeah.
You want to add to that?
Yeah, everything Dana said, but
Nice, yeah.
but yeah, so a sales guy once told me in one of my previous firms, it was like, do you do your job for me or do I do my job for you? Now, what did he mean?
Explain that, please.
He says when he goes out, for instance, and he's doing his sales thing, I'm not there. He gets the deal closed. So why does he need to be concerned about reporting a phishing email? Or that's my job, not his job. Right. So so the people aspect of cybersecurity is more of a science of psychology than it is technical, right? What is it? What is the need for them?
What's in it for
right,
me?
Right. What's the need for me? So the positive reinforcement that Dana talked about is very key. Recognition. Oh, we had these individuals or this department scored the highest around this area, right? You also need to think about not just because phishing is just one, social engineering, but there are other things. You have potential insiders in your organization. And I don't mean people who are just maliciously in your organizations trying to steal, even though you have a couple of those in every organization.
Yeah.
But you have people who are negligent or just not aware that if I click on this link or if I send this data to my personal email, it has risks that, affects the organization. So that continuous awareness, but also laying it up with the positive reinforcements and also how that relates to your own personal life. If you look at how cybersecurity awareness is done today, it looks at the employee and the organization, right? Where most organizations are moving away from is not just the employee and the organization, but the employee as a human being. How do you protect, for instance, the iPad that your son has at home or your wife's phone as well? How they know? So you infuse all of that to make it more like you're not doing this for the organization, you're doing it for yourself inherently. And that awareness tends to have more positive impact than the stick. So more carrot than stick when it comes to people, because that's just how people are.
No, absolutely. And when they see it as a collective responsibility, I really like the idea of tying it into what I have to do, not for the organization, but for myself, for my family.
Yeah.
And intuitively, unknowingly, I start performing the same behaviors in the organization because it's part of who I am.
Exactly.
Totally love it. So one thing I noticed across board is that you guys both got into this career, into this industry from different channels. I could argue that historically you get into the CISO profession through the technology stream.
Yeah.
And I'm asking the question because you have individuals who are leaders in organizations watching this, but you're also going to have people who are admiring and having aspirational targets to become a CISO at some point. So what is the hack into getting into this profession?
Sure. Yeah, so I guess I really have an unconventional way how I got into this CISO role or cybersecurity even. So basically, I started my career in business development for large events and in sport. And I got the chance to work for a sport security consultancy here in the region as a head of business development. And I got really interested in security, in the topic and the science of security. It was purely physical security at that point. So that's how I started, understanding physical security, threat and risk assessments, protecting buildings, facilities, designing perimeter security, counterterrorism, physical security systems, of course, the human aspect, protecting people when they travel, for example, for the business, etc., etc. And so I grew from there, basically doing one certification after another. I then, through the physical security stream, got into business continuity management, because that is also quite related. Incident management, crisis management, business continuity management. And through that, I got the role at an energy industrial company and got back into security there and was basically in charge of security risk management. I was the interface between enterprise risk management level and technical security level. But of course, cybersecurity was a big focus for this organization. So I started learning all the cybersecurity aspects and did, again, one certification after another to get myself into this without having that technical IT or engineering background. So I had to understand basically how all the different layers of a computer work and how they can be attacked, how different protocols work. It's quite technical what you need to understand. But as we said before, the principles of security across physical and digital world are the same. We want to restrict access, right? Only to the least privilege, need to know basis. We want to have measures in place to protect, to detect, to respond and recover.
Interesting. Protect, detect,
respond.
So it's actually the whole framework, if you would want to remember it, it's govern.
Okay.
Because we have to govern the process.
All right, yeah.
Identify the assets, as we said in the beginning, extremely important. What am I protecting?
Yeah.
Protective measures in place.
Correct.
And then when something happens, I need to be able to detect it, respond, and recover. So this is one of the control frameworks.
I gotta leave here the pseudo professional or something. Yeah. Richard.
Yeah. So again, what Dana said. so look, if you look at many professions like accounting or medicine, they are centuries old. Cybersecurity is probably an adolescent compared to those.
True.
There's no one size fits all for entering into cybersecurity because there are multiple domains. In fact, there are 16 different domains if you look at many standards around where cybersecurity, whether it's access security, third parties, even project management in cybersecurity is a field, right? Mm-hmm. So I personally entered cybersecurity from technical route. I was doing networking, I was doing basic system administration, and then cybersecurity looks like the next thing because you need to protect the networks, you need to protect the IPs and stuff. But what I've seen more recently is there is no limit to whatever knowledge you have, you can bring it into a cybersecurity domain and you can excel. I have two examples of individuals I've worked with who were not technical cybersecurity experts. They came in through the route of, one of them came in through brand marketing, right?
Oh, really?
Interesting.
And where did she join? She joined the communications team for cybersecurity, where we send out awareness campaigns and send, how do you make a compelling case for this type of thing we're talking about?
That's a very professional way to involve the marketing person.
Exactly. So the person understands cybersecurity, understands how marketing works, understands what people want to see, and helps to drive your message. helps to create content for even the executive or the board type of awareness. So that knowledge is not lost, right? You might say I'm a fresher in cyber, but you're coming with years of experience in marketing. I've seen individuals who come from procurement or legal come into cybersecurity. Where did they end up? They ended up in supply chain management or what we call third-party security, right? Why will I need the skill set of a procurement or legal person? You can see where you're coming.
Yeah.
I use that person's knowledge to ensure that the kinds of liabilities and the contracts and the minimum requirements that you put into a contract or the controls you need to check from a procurement point of view, those types of things happen. So my message to individuals who want to break in is come as you are, right? Come with the knowledge and see where you fit in. It doesn't always have to be a technical route.
Love it.
And I know there are individuals who will say, oh, if you're not technical, you can't survive in cyber. It's not true. There are multiple use cases and multiple stories where people come from different preferred backgrounds and they apply that knowledge into just making things work.
We have a
cyber.
great example here in our
Yes.
room, right?
Exactly.
And just to add to this, I fully agree. I spoke at conferences about this already. It's about diverse teams are creating stronger impact for the business,
Absolutely.
exactly with the different backgrounds. That's how you should recruit your teams. Absolutely. If you just have technical geeks.
A narrow view. Yeah.
It is
Yep.
because it is not about technology alone.
Correct,
It has
correct.
so many facets.
Yeah.
So
And I'll say one thing. I think technically we also have this narrowed view where we're blinded by. So if you look at a techie, a core techie, the person is very immersed in the tech, right? Everything around the tech or that surrounds that tech sometimes is lost on the individual. Again, so cybersecurity is not an end to itself. It's a means to an end, right? So if I'm a techie, I need to collaborate and have diverse views from other individuals that influence what the business wants, right? So many times you have technical people in cybersecurity roles, but they only get the shine when they're working with other people across diverse backgrounds. So I can mention marketing, I can mention risk, compliance,
Yes.
because that's how it works. It's not just cybersecurity and technology. It's all these different things that we've talked about. The process, understanding business continuity, for instance, will help you understand how you fashion or design your incident response. If I don't understand business continuity from the business lens, how do I know
What are you
that
designing?
my incident response works well to continue the business? Because that's what incident response is, respond and recover. So just the same thing we're saying, different diverse views and different backgrounds can make it within cyber.
And when we perform these risk assessments, we're not just looking at the technological controls that we have in place. We're looking at exactly the processes, the workflows, and the understanding of the stakeholders that are involved. So it's not just about the technology aspect, but of course I need strong people at the same time that are very good with technology, because this is where it happens as well, right? This is where the attack happens. That's why sometimes managed services work really well, because there's so much automation, innovation going on. These companies actually educate themselves every day with this. They have a very strong offering for many businesses. Also, smaller businesses can benefit from this. Rather than having these people in-house, they outsource it, right? They outsource their security operations center to these specialists. I need them, that's for sure, but I need a good mix. And this is quite interesting. How do I design my capability, my cybersecurity function with in-house versus outsourced to design that optimal model for my business?
So you've debunked a lot in your response, because I had different thoughts and mindset about how you get into the security, the cybersecurity space. And you guys have really done a great job in debunking that. I want to know if you have a message, because that was a message to individuals who want to get into the industry. But what is one thing you wish leaders in organizations, not your organization, the fact that your employers have you guys tells me that all is smooth sailing, okay? But what do you wish more leaders knew about when it comes to cybersecurity, or what do you wish they could do more of in that space?
It's a good question. So I speak to a lot of our senior leaders, and one of the conversations that we typically have is, are we going to be hacked? that question is definitely always front and center. The answer is not yes. The answer is not no. The answer is it depends on how much resources we pour into managing the risks that we have. So senior leaders should not wait for their organizations to be a statistic, right? They should understand what are clearly from your cybersecurity head or CISO, whatever you call him, clearly, what are the risks we are managing from a cyber lens? Which ones aren't we managing properly? Which ones are we green on? And where do you need support? Senior leaders should not wait till something bad happens before asking those questions. And the answer should be very clear. In their minds, they should get it clearly from the person who is communicating that, which is the CISO. We're managing X very well, Y and Z. A and B, we're still working on it because there's a project plan or there's something. And then D, we can't do anything about. So if a state-sponsored attack comes right now and they launch a cyber attack on us, we would definitely not survive that, right? So those kinds of things should be clear in a senior leader's mind as they take decisions about where the business is going.
Love it.
Do you want to add on that?
Yeah. Brilliant. That would have been my answer as well. But
right?
just to reinforce that message, don't just think compliance checklists. Don't see all these controls and in terms of their completion rating and that audit report that might come out with so many controls still to be implemented. Look at the risks. This defines what controls need to be performing in what way, how effective they need to be, and what investment you got to make into what controls. Ultimately, you can run a business purely on security risk management, right? If you have defined well your scope, you have mapped out all your risks, and you run your key initiatives based on risk mitigation. And all these controls are helping those risks. So I think this is the message to leadership, to go beyond audit compliance and checklists, but ask your people the right question about risk posture and how well are we doing to mitigate those key business risks.
Yeah, and there are a lot of publications for senior leaders in many of the journals to look at what is going on in cybersecurity. How do you make sense of it? Because I know people still look at cybersecurity as a black box. I don't understand all this phishing and hacking things, but it's becoming a bit more palatable to pick up a journal or pick up an article and say, okay, this makes sense. Maybe I should have a conversation with my cybersecurity head on what this means for us as a business and educate themselves, self-education as well.
And give us the opportunity also to speak in front of the leaders. If we don't report straight into the board, give us the opportunity to directly stand in front of the board
and put the message forward.
And put that message forward and not through maybe one or two other levels where the message might dilute.
Exactly.
Yeah. Spot on. I mean, it sounds like we can go on and go on.
But
we always knew it wasn't going to be a 1 hour conversation, but we have a final one, I guess, to wrap it up.
We have a final question to wrap up. What is your impact formula?
So I personally rely on my people skills. I think cybersecurity is a selling job. I'm not a great salesman, but I think you need to sell the proposition that the value of cybersecurity brings to the organization with every conversation that you have, right? That's the impact. When you're not in the room and people say, we need to call the CISO, we need to call the cyber guy to give his input because they know that there's value in what you're going to bring in terms of where the organization is going and what kind of risk can't we see because the cybersecurity team has said, let's do this and let's do that. And they consider that. When you start to see conversations are being held and you're being dragged into rooms, you know that the impact and the value you bring to the organization is really, taking its mark.
Spot on. I know I once told someone in a particular role in the organization that you're in a selling role, you have to sell. And they were offended. How dare you say Dana, what is your impact?
Yeah, I agree. Ultimately, it's a bit of a sales role because we're dealing with an uncertainty, right? It's a risk. And we are putting controls in place. We're spending money and resources on something that might or might not happen. So it really is our job to make this measurable, right? That risk management process, but also understand who we are talking to every single time and what their interest in this complex business model is. The CEO has a different interest to the COO, who is interested in continuity of operations. The CFO is interested in ROI. The procurement manager wants to streamline their process, or the project manager, they don't want to get delays in the project. So we need to understand who we're talking to get the message across. But ultimately, we are there to protect the business from material impact caused by a security incident, specifically a cyber security incident, right? And the jobs and the shareholder value. So it comes down to that. That's the bottom line message that I always bring in.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing end of our conversation. But there is so many topics to talk about.
We haven't touched AI. Can we touch AI briefly? Okay, because I mean, Richard in financial services, and just one minute.
Yeah.
I have never activated voice recognition. I saw a post on recently where he's like, I don't understand why more and more people are still using voice recognition. That AI has totally disarmed that. Doesn't make sense anymore. You have to go back to rudimentary practices. I also saw a post, I think you put it on LinkedIn, whereby KYC, a falsely generated passport created on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So is AI making life more difficult? And we're going to close with this, and how we tackling threats and breaches in the world that is totally different.
Yeah.
A very scary world.
So I'll be fast with it. I think AI has changed the world dramatically in the way. I don't think maybe the internet changed the world, right? Where businesses had to go digital and so on. Or maybe the way automobiles changed the world when horse and carriages and you have cars. Yeah. But I think what Sam Altman is saying is practical, because today the cons of AI, which is being used by criminals or threat actors, is at the same level of the progressive and efficiency, factors that AI brings today. You can write a paper, you can write something in 2 minutes that would have taken, hours to do. So I think organizations need to be clear on where are the risks that my businesses will face today from not just the deployment of AI, but also the adoption of AI by not just internal staff, but customers as well. So look at deepfake, for instance. You heard a story about somebody gets to a Zoom call, everybody on the Zoom call is his colleague, the videos are on, but he's the only one who is actually from that company, and then they lost $60 million to that. Yeah. So I think we can have a long conversation on this, but it's a two-edged sword in every ramification of that word. It's going to increase productivity, it's going to make life easy for many people, students, doctors, everybody, but it's also going to create a big risk landscape that we've never seen before, and we just need to be aware of, some of these loopholes. Governments, agencies, regulators, and businesses need to be prepared.
Absolutely. And I think now you can formally close the podcast. But it's been a delightful conversation. It's our first time doing a combo session with two guests. And it really flowed off really well. So we're going to do this model more and more. We're also thinking about having debates at some point, but it looks like you guys are on the same...
on the same side.
Maybe on the same side, but more pro and cons or something.
But Dana, thanks so much for joining the Impact Nexus. Richard, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure being a co-guest with Dana.
It was a great discussion.
Thanks for having me.